Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today I'm going to be doing a character creation video for the Dragon Age role-playing game. So I picked up the hardcover just a few days ago, and I've been reading through it quite a bit, and I'm really happy, or really a big fan of this game. I genuinely want to start running this at some point, hopefully in the very near future. So today, like I said, I'll be creating a first level character and just basically show how that works and how it's done. I will be creating, similar to like the Goblin Test videos, I'll just be going through and creating a Ferelden human warrior, and we'll look through some of the background stuff like that, and we'll go through all the steps. Now, I am going to be using the Player's Guide book from the set 1 of the RPG. The biggest reason is that it is the same material and information, but it's a bit more condensed, which will make it a little bit easier to kind of find everything that I need for the purposes of this video. And I'd rather do that than sort of try to hold up the hardcover while I'm doing everything else as well. So we're just going to go through, and like I said, we're going to be making a first level warrior character, and go through all the necessary steps. The first thing that we need to do is determine just a couple of things, I guess, before we start. So the biggest thing is, of course, we need to find out our ability scores, or our abilities. They're not actually ability scores. That's a phrase that I'm really used to from playing Dungeons & Dragons so much. In the Dragon Age game, you only have what we would consider to be ability modifiers. So the combined total of the 3d6 dice that you roll to get your ability doesn't matter past just the generation process. So once we have our ability, that's the number that we will always use, and it ranges from -2 to +4 as the default numbers that you can get on the dice. So we'll probably be getting mostly 1s and 2s. Hopefully, and we'll see how that goes. So the way that you do this is you roll the 3d6, and you get your result, you get your total, and you write that down in the order that you roll it. So the abilities are communication, constitution, cunning, dexterity, magic, perception, strength, and willpower. So you actually record them in the order that you roll them, but at the end you can swap any 2 stats. So, for example, if I want to make a warrior and I get a really horrible strength but a really good magic stat, then I would probably swap those 2. So that's basically what we're going to start off with here, and we'll look at backgrounds and stuff after. So I guess the first thing that I'll do is just fill out some of the basic details on this sheet. We'll zoom in a little bit. Now, this is just a homemade character sheet that I had done using, I think it was Microsoft Excel. So nothing very fancy here at all, but this is the, we'll zoom back out here actually. So this is what the official sheet would look like. Now there is a second, like a 2-page version of it, but this is the one that came with the starter set. And so the second page just has like your weapons, class powers, and spells, stuff like that. So anyway, let's just go right ahead. So the first thing I want to fill in, and like I said, we'll get some of these basic details. So for our name, we're gonna, since I'm a human, I will stick to my sort of default of Ethan. Jasan, and I know I'm going to be a warrior. I'm not going to have any experience points to start, and I will be level 1, so we'll fill that information in. Gender is going to be male. Height is going to be 5 feet, I think he was 5'10", and 100, and let's just say 65 pounds. And I can't fill anything else out yet, so we'll get our dice here, and we'll just zoom back out a bit. Alright. Now for generating stats, we don't worry about the dragon dice at all, but I will sort of explain those in other videos as we go through, and just try to get at least a little bit of a tutorial for the Dragon Age role-playing game, because I think it is an awesome game, and I don't think it gets enough attention. there is a brand new book coming out in August, which has some of the NPCs from the video games fully statted out, so you can use them in your games. Now, I won't be getting that right away because August is also the month of the Pathfinder playtest. So I got to save my money for all those products. But anyway, so communication. Ooh, that is not very good. So. But those are the types of rolls I normally get. So here we go. So that is a total of 5. That might be a penalty. Hold on. Yep. So if we just look at the stats here. Whoop. I can get it to focus. So a 3d6 roll of 5 gives us a starting ability of -1. So just on our sheet here, we would write down -1. I'm going to do that a little bit lightly just because that's probably one that I'm going to swap out. Constitution. That's better. So that is 11. So that's a roll of 14 total. And if I was smart, I would have bookmarked the page for the stats. So we got 14. And just bring it up here. So 14. Is a stat of 2, so that's good. We want that. So let's just go ahead and write down 2. That one is probably going to stay. I guess I'll just write down +2, just so I know that it's a good stat. Cunning, 12, which I'm pretty sure is +1, and I will do the smart thing and actually bookmark it this time. I'm not going to show the chart every single roll, because I think 12 is actually +2, so 12 is 2, so 9, 10, and 11 are +1s, 12, 13, and 14 are +2s, and then 15, 16, 17 are +3, and 18 is +4, so hopefully I'll remember that. Dexterity is going to be a total of 8 and 9, so that is going to be a +1. Magic. Magic is 13, which we've already said is +2. So yeah, I could definitely see me moving communication and magic at this point in time, but we'll see what our other stats end up being. So that is 14, which is also +2. Strength is 10, which is +1, so I might have to... Ooh. Okay. And willpower. Willpower is 9, which is +1. So not bad overall. I mean, nothing absolutely fantastic. But I think what I'm going to have to do is leave communication as it is, so I'm not going to be the most... I'm not going to be the mouth of the party, hopefully. But I am going to switch, because I can switch any 2 stats now. So I'm going to switch magic and strength because I want to be, I'm a warrior character. If I was a mage, I would probably keep that more or less as is, actually. Maybe switch communication and strength if I was going to be a wizard or a mage. I guess they call it specifically mages in this one. But so what we're going to do is swap those 2. So I now have +1. For magic, and +2 for my strength. So let's just zoom back out here. We've got our starting ability scores. I'm just going to take a quick drink here. Sorry, just the camera's on the edge of the table, so I want to make sure it doesn't fall. Alright, so now we're looking at our backgrounds. And our backgrounds give us quite a few different abilities as well. So, I said I was going to make a Ferelden, but I might end up changing that, actually. So we're just going through, like I said, we're going through our backgrounds here. So we got like the Apostate, we've got the Avar Hillsman. So these are, they are based in Ferelden, but the Avar are kind of like, almost like barbarians type of things. So we got those. Won't be playing a circle mage. Probably won't be playing a city elf either, although elves are my favorite class, race, I mean. Dalish Elf, which would be cool if I was playing a, well, just about any class, but again, I think it works best as, if I was playing the mage class for the Dalish Elf, or the rogue one works as well. Alright, so yeah, I think Ferelden Freeman gives me +1 to Constitution. So right now I'm kind of trying to decide between the Avarian Hillsman or I could be a Surface Dwarf as well, actually, too. +1 to Constitution. Now there is also the Ferelden Noble, and what I'm looking at right now is the default abilities that the backgrounds start with. So each background gives you a +1 to one of your abilities, and that increases the actual number. So if I have if I did something that increased my strength by +1, then that 2 would become a 3, which is something that I'm tempted in. So it's either going to be strength or constitution that I'm looking for. I think I'm actually going to pick the Avarian Hillsman. So let's just drop the last name there, just because I don't think that kind of proper last name fits the Avarians. And actually, I might change the name Athan altogether. And I think I'm just going to name him Dirin. Just another NPC name that I've used a few times. Alright, so you got Dirin. He is of our Hillsman. Alright, so I'm just going to get my second page here. Alright, so the Avarian Hillsman. So he gets +1 to strength. So that's automatically, so my strength goes from a 2 to a 3, and I get to choose, so I get to choose one of the following ability focuses. So I can take communication, animal handling, or I can take strength, climbing. So what the ability focuses do, or any type of focus whatsoever, is if you have a focus in something, it gives you a +2 bonus on your 3d6 roll if you have to make a check. So if I had to make a strength climbing check, I would roll 3d6 and I would add +3, but if I have it as a focus, I would be adding another +2 on top of that. So I think that's what I'm actually going to do, is take that. I can speak the trade tongue, and I could play as either a warrior or a rogue, so I've already determined I'm going to be a warrior. So let's just go ahead and put these things in here. So let's just zoom back in, zoom way in. So our strength is going to change yet again to 3, and we're going to have focus climbing. So if I make a climb check, I get 3d6 plus a total of 5. So if I were to roll, for example, so that's 10, 11, if I was trying to climb something, so that'd be 10, 11, 13, 14, sorry, 12, 13, 14, and then +2 for having the focus would bring that up to a 16 total, which is not bad. Alright, the last thing that we have to do is we also get, under talents and languages, I'm just going to put trade tongue. I can spell it right. Okay. So we'll zoom back out. We are zoomed out. Let's just lift that up a little bit. So the next thing that we have to do is each of these backgrounds also gives us a chart of randomized abilities. So what we do with those, and we'll get of our Hillsman here. So what we do with these is we roll twice on the chart. And if we get the same result twice, what we do is we actually disregard it and roll again. So if I rolled, say, an 8 and got +1 into communication, which would be okay with me, and I rolled for the second one and also got like a 7 or an 8, I would not get another +1 in communication. I would just roll again until I got a different number. So let's go ahead and do that right now. Wow. Okay. So we've got, oh, that's 2d6. So that, I shouldn't have done that. That's 2d6. So rolling all three was not the right idea, so I'll just roll the 2 white dice. Alright, so we got 6. So I also get a focus, a strength, and intimidation. So if I need to make an intimidation check, I can also do that. So I'm just going to write down intimidation. So that's one ability. And the next one is a total of 10, which also gives us a focus and constitution stamina checks. So if I have to make a stamina check of any kind, then I get to add an extra +2 to the roll. Alright, so age, I'm just going to put, let's make him 17. They probably have to fend for themselves pretty early on. Alright, so the next step, now that we have our background, is we use our class features here. So this is the warrior class, and this is just levels 1 through 5. Again, the hardcover book has like all the way through level 20. So we have our primary abilities and our secondary abilities. And the reason that these matter is whenever you gain a level, you can choose, I believe, a focus in an ability. So like it could be like dexterity, stealth, or anything along those lines. The way that it works is every even numbered level, you have to choose a focus that applies to one of your primary abilities. So for the warrior, my primary abilities are Constitution, Dexterity, and Strength. And so I can choose any focus essentially through those 3 abilities at every even number level. So 2, 4, 6, and so on. At every odd numbered level, I can choose a focus. I can choose a focus from one of my the secondary abilities, which is just everything else that's left over. So, for example, I've got Constitution, Dexterity, and Strength. So Communication, Cunning, Magic, Perception, and Willpower are all secondary abilities. So that's basically what happens there. And your class can also give you some ability focuses as well that you can choose from, as well as talents and things along those lines. So let's just start off, and we'll look back down at our sheet here. So I'm just going to zoom in. So if you can see here, and I'm just going to mark this page so I'm not constantly looking for it again. So on this particular sheet, and you can see it again on the back here, it has these little squares. So basically, if it's one of your primary class abilities, then you just shade in that square. So for example, we have Constitution, Dexterity, and Strength. So we've got those shaded in. That indicates that those are our primary abilities. In addition to that, we get our starting health, which is 30 plus our Constitution plus 1d6. So, looking on the sheet here, our Constitution is 2, so we start at 32 plus 3, so our starting health, which I'm going to write in this little box up here, is 35. So that's how much health we have to start with. In addition, we also get weapon groups. So we automatically get, and just see if I've got a place to put that down there. I'm just going to write it down under like talents and languages and I guess that stuff there. So we get automatically the brawling weapon group, and we get we can choose any 3 of the following from axes, bludgeons, bows, heavy blades, light blades, spears, or stabs. So I'm going to choose, so let's just write down brawling. I'm actually just going to do it right down here at the bottom. Weapon, what's that called? Weapon group. Alright, so we start off with brawling automatically, so we get that one without having to make any choices. And I'm going to choose probably axes, bows, and heavy blades. Axes, bows, and heavy blades. Okay, so we got all that done. So now we get our starting talents. So for first level, it says you become a novice in 2 of the following talents: Archery Style, Dual Weapon Style, Single Weapon Style, Thrown Weapon Style, Two-Hander Style, and Weapon and Shield Style. You'll start as a novice in Armor Training. So we're going to, so we have Armor Training, and I'm just going to write that down under, so we have Talents and Languages. So Armor, and yeah, my writing is horrible, I understand that. But we got Armor Training, and I'm just going to write down Novice. I'm going to take probably Archery and Weapon and Shield. And okay. And Weapon and Shield. And that is all of our first level class features. So we've got all that stuff taken care of there. We have our starting focuses and stuff like that already chosen. So the next couple of things that we do, so we've got our starting equipment. So we get a backpack, traveler's garb, and a water skin. If you are a mage, we are not, but if you're a mage you get 1 weapon and a wand. So we're not a mage. If you're a rogue, which again we're not, you get light armor or light leather armor and 2 weapons. If you are a warrior, you get heavy leather armor and 3 weapons. And then if I choose a bow or a crossbow, I get 20 arrows or bolts. And if I have the weapon and shield talent, I also get a medium shield. So I'm just going to go ahead and fill that in. I also get 50 plus 3d6 silver pieces for additional equipment. So I get 58 silver. So I'll just write that down here as well, 58 silver. And I'm just going to write down my starting equipment, and I will be right back. Alright, so I am back here. I just filled in some of that information. I also made a couple of changes to the character sheet, which I'll show off here in a moment, but I did write down our starting equipment. So these are the ones that I get, items that I get automatically by default. So there's backpack, traveler's garb, water skin, heavy leather armor, and shield. I also get 3 weapons that I get to choose. Now I didn't fill in any of their information yet, but there's longsword, longbow, and two-handed axe. As ability or as weapons that I had chosen, and just for some of the information on the character himself, I just changed the height and the weight to make it make a little bit more sense for how I picture, these hillsman, barbarian type of characters. So I made him 6'1" and 195 pounds because I think that just makes a little bit more sense. The next thing, I also filled in the novice levels of training that I have for some of the talents that I get starting off as a first level character. But I also just want to show just a little bit of the talent stuff here. So, or not talents, the focuses. So with the focus, you get a +2 bonus when you're making the types of checks, and it breaks it down by which ones you get per which of your ability scores or abilities. So there's like communication, so you can get things like animal handling, deception, disguise, etiquette, gambling, investigation, leadership. You can even make persuasion and seduction tests. And it just shows all the other ones here. I'm not going to go into too many of these, but these are just the focuses that you can choose. So there are a lot of different options for you. So you're not going to run out anytime soon. But I also went ahead and just filled in the novice levels for the talents that I have. So with the talents, whenever you gain a new talent, or when you get the option to gain one, which you do at when you reach an odd numbered level, so like 3, 5, so on and so forth. You can either choose a brand new talent to start as a novice at, as long as you meet the requirements, or you can increase the level of training that you have in one of your existing talents. So again, this is a first level character, so they're all going to be novice level. But I have armor training here. So with what that does is with novice level you can wear leather armor or mail armor without suffering a penalty to dexterity. And I'll get into that when I actually fill in the information for what the armor does here in a moment. But that is a pretty decent thing to have. It's a very good ability to have. Up next I also have the Archery Style. So the novice level for that is when you take the aim action using a crossbow or a bow, I gain a +2 bonus to the attack roll instead of just a normal +1. And then the last one that I have is the weapon and shield. So with that, essentially, I always get the full defense bonus for using a shield, whereas ordinarily I think you're limited to, I think +1 or +2. I think, or it's always +1 unless you have like training in it or something like that. Let's just see here. Yeah, I don't think it says it immediately, but basically, I think you only get. Oh, shield bonus. Yeah. So normally the maximum bonus that you can get from a shield is +1, unless you are sort of training it. So. If you know how to have the weapon and shield style talent, the maximum bonus you can get is +1. So yeah, having that allows me to, if I get a larger shield, I get the full armor bonus from it, which is pretty good to have. So with that in mind, we are going to go ahead and just fill in some of our information here. So we start with we'll start with the armor here. So we got our armor types up top here. So what we have is we have armor rating and armor penalty. Now defense is actually something that is calculated completely differently. So defense is how easily you can dodge attacks and prevent yourself from getting hit in the first place. What armor rating does, however, is it reduces the damage that you take. So we got just right here. So each armor type has a numeric rating. When you take damage in combat, you subtract the armor rating before losing health. This applies each time you are hit, so over time, even poor armor can prevent you from taking a lot of damage. There are types of attacks, however, that do what's called penetrating damage, and penetrating damage bypasses that amount of defense. So there are certain spells that will deal penetrating damage. There are certain types of, I think, like weapon attacks that you can make depending on your class that I think can also bypass that armor rating. But what it does, again, it just gives you sort of essentially damage reduction if you're used to some versions of Dungeons & Dragons. So we have heavy leather armor, which gives us an armor rating of 4. And it is a leather armor, so we're not actually going to be taking that penalty. So it says here armor penalty, so each armor type also has a penalty that represents the weight and bulk. The penalty applies to your speed if you are trained in the armor's use, but to dexterity if you're not. So basically it's still going to affect my speed because I do have the armor training novice level, but it's only speed. Otherwise it would be like a penalty to any sort of dexterity based check that I would normally make. So it still reduces speed, but it could have been a lot worse. So since I'm actually wearing something I'm proficient in. So on our sheet here, we've got armor rating and armor penalty. So armor rating is 4 and armor penalty is going to be -1. So let's just backtrack just a second. Now that we have our armor penalty, what we need to do is figure out our speed and our defense. So, defense and speed. Defense is going to be up here, so it's 10 plus my dexterity plus my shield bonus. Now the shield bonus that I have is +2 for being a medium shield, which is the one that I got for a starting equipment. So 10 plus my dexterity, which is 1, so that brings it to 11. So my defense is 13. So when a creature attacks me, they have to get a total of 13 or greater in order to hit me. So, for example, if they got it like a +0 bonus, for example, and I got 12 on the dice, they would miss me altogether. But if they hit, I would subtract whatever damage they dealt to me by 4, which is useful, to say the very least. And then we have our speed. Try if I can get it to focus here. So we are a human, so our speed is 10 plus dexterity minus armor penalty. So our dexterity is +1, which if you look down here, so +1, and our armor penalty is -1. And remember that the armor penalty still applies to our speed. So we have a speed of 10. And how that works is, in this game, it uses yards as the standard form of measurement. So I can move 10 yards in like a combat situation, or if we're like using rounds or things along those lines. If you use miniatures on a grid, then essentially each square represents 2 yards. So instead of it being 5 feet, it's closer to 6 feet, but it still works out pretty well. So I could move essentially 5 squares in this game if we were using like actual miniatures on a grid. But that's what we have for that. The last things to fill in is going to be our weapons, and then we can choose some extra equipment as well if we need to. And then we're going to be done. So I chose longsword, longbow, and two-handed axe. So just in our groups here, let's just tilt that up a little bit for now. So we've got our weapon groups, axes, and I believe you suffer a penalty to attacks if you're attacking with one that you're not proficient in. Weapon training, yeah, it's a -2 penalty. Oh, it's -2. So if I attack with a weapon that I'm not proficient with, like if I went to attack with bludgeons, for example, I would get -2 on the attack roll, and the weapon damage is only half. So whatever I rolled, I would divide it by 2. So, for example, if I hit with a mace, I would be rolling my 3 6-sided dice plus my strength -2, and then 2d6 plus my strength. Or divided by 2. So, like if, for example, I did 9 damage with an attack with a weapon I'm not proficient in this case, a mace, it would only end up doing 4 because you round down. So you want to attack within your groups. So all of our attack rolls are actually going to be the same, which is going to be +3. And I think there are some talents that can affect your like attack roll bonuses, stuff like that. And there are other things that you can do that can increase them. For example, there are types of actions you can take. So with my bow, if I were to take the aim action, ordinarily it would give you like +1 to your attack roll. But in this case, it would give me +2. And I believe aiming is, when you get to combat, and I'll explain this more when I get to the actual combat video, but you get like you can take 1 major action and 1 minor action, or 2 minor actions. So something like movement, for example, is minor. I want to say that aiming is also a minor action. But if you do that, you can't move if you want to make the attack in the same roll, kind of idea. So anyway, so the damage for our two-handed axe is 3d6, and you're always adding your strength modifier to that because it uses your strength. And it actually tells you in the weapons group, so a second here. So for example, axes use strength, bludgeons use strength, bows use dexterity, brawling uses dexterity, light blades use dexterity, heavy blades use strength. So I'm using strength for everything except for my bows. So actually, longbow is not +3. Let's fix that. That's only going to be +1. So you can see why I would want to be able to, use the aim action to increase that to make it +3. And I'm just going to put in brackets +3 with aim. All right. So 3d6, and we know our strength is +3. So +3. Alright, the next weapon we're going to look for is, let's go with the longbow next, because bows were next on the chart here. So longbow does 1d6 +3, and you do add your dexterity to that as well. Oh, actually, hold on. I'm glad I looked this up. So if I use bows, I actually add my perception to damage, and not my dexterity. So that's pretty cool. If you're untrained, the damage is half. We already went over that. Yeah, so I get to actually add. So it's 1d6 +3, but I also get to add my perception. So that's actually going to be 1d6 +5 damage, because my perception, if we look up here, perception is +2. So we're already doing pretty good there, so some decent damage numbers. And then the last one that we want to look at is our longsword, which is under the heavy blades. So it's going to do 2d6 plus my strength. And my strength is 3. So again, some pretty decent damages. The last thing is just to see if I want any extra equipment. So here we have just the equipment chart. Now this is the adventurer's gear. Again, in the actual hardcover there's going to be more options, obviously. However, I'm not going to worry too much about that right now. Only because, quite frankly, this isn't a character that I'm going to be doing for actually role-playing. But there are a few different things that I'd want to take. Now I have 58 silver pieces that I can use, and silver is the standard in this world. So, and basically each coin, you need 100 of each coin to make the next level of coinage. So, for example, copper pieces, it takes 100 copper to make a single silver, and it takes 100 silver to make a single gold. So gold does not get used very often, but let's just have a look here. So one thing that I would want to take actually is going to be a healer's kit, which is 25 silver pieces, so I'm just going to write that down. I'm not necessarily proficient in it or overly skilled in it, but it's still nice to have. And what the healer's kit does is it contains bandages, herb salves, potions, small knives, thread and needle, and other tools used to treat injury. So it's just good to have something like that on you, and that was 25 silver, so we are down to 23 remaining. So I'm just going to write that down here. SP, alright. I'd also like to see if I could, because there are some things that cost copper pieces here as well. So, for example, I want to get a flask, which I don't have. I have a water skin, but I still like to have a flask as well. So a flask is 50 copper pieces, which is half of a silver, which brings that to 22.5. And what I want to do now is just take up the rest of the remaining 50 copper pieces, just to make that nice even math right now off the top here. So flint and steel is 10. And torches are 10 as well. So I'm going to take flint and steel, and I'm going to take 4 torches. And what that does, that equals 100 copper pieces, which equals a single silver. So I'm now at 22 silver. I do want 20 yards of rope. Which brings me down to an even 20 silver pieces. And that might be good enough. Let's just take, let's take a, do I have a bedroll? I do not. Are there bedrolls? So I'll take a, no, I'm not going to worry too much about that. right now at this point in time. So I do want to take a Whetstone though. So that brings me down to 19 and 90 copper pieces and a Whetstone. And what the Whetstone does is, yeah, just use it to keep the weapon sharp. So no industrial like mechanical bonuses to it, but there we go. And I think that's basically all that I'm going to put on my character for now. I'm not too worried about anything else. I think we're going to be okay. So just the last little details here. So, under money and equipment, I've got all my equipment written down. So, I have 19 silver pieces, and I have 90 copper pieces, since it was 10 copper for that Whetstone. So, just going to make note of that, and that is my first level warrior character. And we are finished. So, just to sort of recap here, armor type, let me just write that down. So armor type is heavy leather, whoops, armor, and whoops, medium shield. Okay. So there are just a couple of other things that we could fill in here, like there's distinguishing features, as well as concepts, goals, and ties, and these are kind of like background information, and that's the kind of thing that, you know, it's really up to you as a player. So, for example, I could have basically a goal of maybe one of my family members was considered an apostate and was killed by Templars, and I want to find the Templars that killed like my brother or something and get revenge or something along those lines. I mean, you can think about just about anything that you would want, and it's just sort of your background information. But I'm not going to worry too much about that at this point in time. We do have our first level warrior character done. So tomorrow, what I'm going to do is probably create a mage character, and I may as well do that on camera as well. I'll have a lot of the other stuff already taken care of, some of the basic stuff, but I'll show you sort of how to like choose your spells and how to note your spells and things of that manner. And the next day I will do a combat demonstration, which shows basically the combat system, how to do it. Hopefully I'll generate some stunts with my dice rolls as well, and I'll have my fighter and my mage character both in that combat, so I can show off melee attacks, range attacks, and spells, and see how those work. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you found it helpful on how to make characters. Again, this is a first level character for the Dragon Age role-playing game, and hope you come back tomorrow and we'll take a look at the mage class. So until then, thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.